I have a passion for getting to learn absurdly too much about extremely obscure topics.
My name is Merrill CEO of Mark Research. I'm a 35-year veteran of the research and insights community and the host of our podcast, On the Mark. On the Mark is focusing on executives and thought leaders in the world, sharing their insights, strategies, and personal experiences. I promise this podcast will be filled with tough, pointed questions with real, insightful, and emotional answers. Today's guest is my good friend, Colson Steber, co-CEO of Communication for Research. Colson, welcome to the On the Mark podcast.
Thanks, Merrill. Happy to be here.
All right, so we're going to get into it. Before we get into some serious stuff, I got to tell you something. I found something on your LinkedIn profile over the weekend that I was kind of curious about. So it says something about dough tosser extraordinaire on your LinkedIn profile. So if I'm having a pizza party, are you the guy I send for to come over?
Yeah, absolutely. My side passion is definitely cooking, and I spent 4 years of college at the iconic pizza place of my college town. And there, in the early days of smartphones, there was lots of videos of me tossing pizza dough in the corner.
Wow. So do you have like the record of this in this pizza place of tossing it, 19 feet in the air and catching it behind your back or something?
No, but anybody that knows Shakespeare's Pizza knows that every single weekend, day and evening, it's a line out the door and a 2-hour wait. And I can definitely throw a pie, sauce it, and cheese it in under 30 seconds.
Can you really? Wow, that's fast. That is really, really fast and impressive. So now let's get into some serious stuff. Why don't we start with just give the listeners an overview of your career and your company.
After I finished my MBA in finance and economics, I was wayfinding as an adjunct professor of statistics and personal finance, and my father was begging me to come back and help him to run the business. So I joined the company beginning of 2012 and went on what I call the accelerated life path. Actually ended up purchasing the business 4 years later in May of 2016 with a guy that had worked for my father for 15 years before that. And we became co-CEOs and have absolutely transformed the business model in the last 5 years to grow the company and grow up as leaders to meet the current needs of the research industry.
That's great. So let's start with that with your dad. I mean, was it when you graduated, you knew you wanted to go into research, or was there pressure when you were playing t-ball also from your dad? Hey, you're going to go into the family business when you're old enough.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd asked me 3 months before I did it, whether I would have ever worked for my father, I would have told you absolutely not. So I did obviously have an affinity to market research as I spent my young years doing data entry on syndicated research that we actually still run today. Did telephone interviewing for a couple different call centers in early days. I mean, it was a constant topic in my household, but I didn't realize it was for me. I just knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and own my own business. And then when you get out of college and you're facing going to be a financial analyst at some mega company, you look around and say, wow, if I just go join my family business, I can probably own this thing within 5 years. And market research is something I already know a hell of a lot about. And it became my adopted industry because I have a passion for getting to learn absurdly too much about extremely obscure topics.
So you bought the company about a little over 4 1/3 years ago.
Yep.
And give me maybe 4 or 5 words to describe the first, 4+ years of experience for you and your partner. Just a few words.
Survival, excitement, strategy, growth.
How about one more?
Difficult.
Wow, it's funny. I thought you were going to say stressful, but you didn't. So let's talk about this for a second. In terms of, you mentioned a few minutes ago, you've transformed the company from what it was 4 years ago to what it is today. Let's talk a little bit about that. What's transformed and how did you guys do it?
The company was always a market research data collection business whose most of the revenue, even when I joined in 2012, what came from telephone interviewing. which was quickly disappearing in a world where the default option is to do online surveys. So I set out to expand our capabilities based off of our deep expertise in agriculture research, which was about 80% of what we were doing. I realized that we knew a lot about how to engage B2B respondents and felt that we could take those recruiting and data collection skills and apply it back to other markets. So I spent the next probably 5 years working to expand what we're doing to where now agriculture research is only about half of what we do. And we're really a partner back to the market research industry, doing what I call research logistics, planning, executing, and setting other researchers up to succeed with output that is ready to use and technically sound.
Cool. No, that's exciting. That's great. It's funny. I get asked this a lot. Merrill, you're a CEO. Yeah. What do you do? I'm going to ask you that. What's an average day for you as a co-CEO?
Average day, I wake up at 5 a.m. I have a set of 5 core habits and a ritual for the morning that I complete over the first 2 hours. Say bye to my family, get here to the office about between 7:15 and 7:30. I review my priorities and typically am trying to knock some things out before that are on my own to-do list. And then by 9 o'clock, I'm typically on video calls, and then I'm on video calls until 5 p.m.
Wow, that's interesting. So you and I have at least one of those things in common. We both get up at 5 a.m. You mentioned 5 habits. What are the 5 habits?
I start every day by reviewing all of the pictures from the same day in previous years on our Amazon photos and sending one to my wife and telling her why I'm thankful for her and our family. Then I meditate for 20 minutes.
Wow.
Then listen to an audiobook or podcast while I do some form of cardio workout. And then I have my 5th that I added more recently is that I do a check-in with every member of my family where everyone shares how they're feeling to start the day and what they're looking forward to during the day.
Wow, that's nice. So if I kind of bucketed those together, it's almost like you take care of yourself before you're ready to take care of the business and your staff. That's really special. Good for you.
It is very essential and fundamental.
Oh, that's great. Let's start with an easy one. What's the hardest part of your job?
I view things that are clearly extremely complex as simple in my own mind and have a difficult time meeting others where they're at and being an effective leader. Meaning I have to be very intentional about listening, my own coaching skills, and realizing that other people don't know what I know, and I need to not be an arrogant ass when I go to help them with how to get better.
That's good. It's interesting. You talked about leadership, and you mentioned a few minutes ago that you grew up as a leader. You've grown as a leader. How do you think you've grown as a leader from maybe Colson from maybe in 2015 or 16 over the last, 4 or 5 years, Colson? How have you grown?
I'd say in 2015, I believed that, my vision was so strong that I had to force things to happen and have always prioritized thinking about systems, but I always had somewhat of an ego that I knew the best way, whereas that was clearly not the case. And I spend an immense amount of time reading and absorbing information from outside sources now to gain awareness and keep my own growth mindset malleable so that I can learn from what comes in and better influence those that are actually on my team.
Oh, that's cool. No, that's, to have self-awareness, Colson, and that's one of the things. I've known you for a lot of years, and truth be told, I knew your dad, and I know how proud he is of you and everything you and your team has accomplished, and good for you.
Thanks.
To have great self-awareness is something that not a lot of people have. When you have self-awareness, you know how to change, you know how you're perceived, you can get better at things, and not enough people have that, in my opinion. So that's great that you definitely have that. We're going to switch gears for a second. True or false? Your company is going to be stronger after COVID. True or false?
True.
Yeah, I knew you would say that. Now, here's the big question. Why?
March, I did probably a year's worth of deep dive on financial forecasting, budgeting, and modeling that are now systems that will forever improve our managerial financial decision making. I cannot ignore the enormity of the impact of the essentially free credit that's being handed out right now. I was ridiculously undercapitalized and now have taken on an immense amount more debt, but am more confident than ever that that'll be able to fuel growth. And then business was so slow that it forced me to slow down. I was supposed to have 3 days in the office in all of April because I was traveling. I obviously went nowhere. I had never had people dedicated to customer development, account management, and sales until the beginning of 2019 with 2 internal promotions. And I, realized that my own sales management was massively lacking and I needed to really upgrade the skill set of them, and we had the space to do that because we received as many proposals in the month of April as we typically do in a week. And I spent over 40 hours with those guys that month, just doing sales skills coaching.
So you obviously mentor a lot of people. Have you had, other than your dad and probably your partner, do you have, mentors that have helped you along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say I have taken a lot away from, in terms of influential people within our industry. Jude Ollinger, I'd put you on that list. Jamin Brazil, which you guys actually talked about self-awareness on his podcast episode with you.
Yep.
I've learned a ton from, I have a mentor through the Young Presidents Organization right now. I'm a mentor in the Wire Mentor program right now, which has been a great experience. I have a very tight-knit support group. One of my very good friends is a partner at Chapman and Co. consulting firm here in St. Louis. We lean on each other constantly. That would just be the start of the list.
Yeah, certainly I know a number of those people, Jude, Jamin. And first of all, thank you for putting me on that list. That's very kind. Those guys are really terrific leaders in the industry, very, very smart people who love to share. So that's great. Why don't you finish this sentence? Clients of today don't understand blank.
How important screening questions is to the quality of their data.
Okay, that's great. So they're just rushing through it and they're not giving you as much information?
We work with researchers. Researchers oftentimes are extremely focused on the objectives of the research study, the data, and how they're going to do analysis on that. But making sure that you've got screening questions that appropriately include everyone that should be part of the sample population, but also don't kick people out that shouldn't, is an art. As the data collector that does 85% B2B work, where you're dealing with audiences that have technical expertise within a subject matter area, it is extremely frustrating to deal with subjective screening requirements, or to lack an understanding of how the decision-making models might differ between different supply chains. And so we work to understand the audience and how we're going to engage them and provide feedback to improve those screening criteria to be reflective of getting a representative population. But that is typically us at the bottom of the totem pole challenging something that has already been approved by 10 different people. No one had spent any time reading the screening questions.
Yeah, no, there's some good takeaways there. I appreciate that. So, look, being a CEO myself, there's a ton of pressure that I put on myself. Obviously, the responsibility of all the staff that works on our team adds pressure. There's a lot of pressures on today's CEOs. I mean, other than meditating, do you have any best practices, or can you share with the listeners how you handle stress when it gets really overbearing and it's just wow? You're having that type of day that you're ready to explode. How do you handle that? Any ways that you can share?
In a short-term bad situation, I take a walk. I work a lot to have continual processes for self-renewal and creating awareness. And that includes having essentially an annual journal that I set aside an hour a week, half of a day a month, and 2 to 3 days every year to just sit and take that clarity break and get crystal clear on my priorities and work priorities and exactly what my goals are and how my actions are aligned to achieving them.
That's great, Colson. So let's end with this. We get a lot of executives who will be listening to this and whose companies may be struggling a little bit. Is there any last minute comments or any best practices or anything you want to throw out there to help them through this difficult time?
Reach out to me and let me know what the situation is. And I read at least 25 books a year, most of which are business and leadership and self-improvement books. So I usually have a book that I think goes deep on any given topic. Right now I'm reading Team of Teams by General Stanley McChrystal. It's a great book.
Oh, that's great, Colson. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for your time today. Thanks again for listening to Colson Steber. This is the On the Mark podcast. My name is Merrill Dubrow. Have a great day.